some stuff that we didn't cover in those first few episodes, Truth About Porn, was that the role that your gut plays in this whole thing, and how your gut health is connected to the way your brain functions. Can you talk a little, and obviously it's all about nutrition. What are we putting in our body? Our gut responds to what we're eating, what we're drinking, how much sleep we get, how much exercise all these things kind of come together. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you've probably done quite a bit of learning and reading and growth in that area over the last few years. Since you were last here.
No, yeah, absolutely. I had Dr. Stephen Gundry on the podcast about a year ago, right after the release of his book, Gut Check. And we were in this exact conversation about the role that gut plays in addiction. He's telling me, as a nutritionist, the amount of addiction clients that he works with, because they come to him, because they find his work. And he had a great line, right? Hippocrates said it 2,500 years ago, all disease begins within the gut. Now, I don't believe addiction is a disease, but I think there's a lot of truth in that statement from 2,500 years ago. All our ailments, all our illness, all our diseases begin within the gut. You mentioned in 2019 where you saw me on February, and it was about Easter time, was the next time you saw me. It was a 2.5 month kind of gap there.
60-pound weight loss?
Yeah, it was about 40 at that time. I think total was about 60 when I was done and completed. What led me and contributed to that was a lot of fasting, eating one meal a day, in the carnivore diet.
Right.
And like I said, I didn't understand how it was changing me. I mean, I was experiencing incredible change, both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually at the time. But the carnivore diet is a great tool for anybody that is struggling with a leaky gut. It will literally change the inner gut lining in about a 7 to 14 day window. It will restore your entire gut microbiome. So like I said, at the time, I didn't understand the role I was playing and how I was beginning to think differently and how I was beginning to kind of live differently. But as I kind of looked back, and done the research and spoken with the experts, we realized all of your thoughts, all of your brain's ability to produce healthy neurotransmitters starts within the gut. I think the saying for a long time was the gut is the second brain. And I think more and more experts are pointing to it as actually the first brain. Your ability to think clearly, to operate efficiently, to feel good, produce healthy, feel good neurotransmitters, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, all that starts with a healthy gut. If your gut is not healthy, it's going to affect the way your brain works. I mean, I gave an example a couple of weeks ago, right? You have a night of drinking, you wake up with a headache. Well, you didn't pour alcohol into your brain, it went into your mouth and then into your gut. But the inner lining of the gut now has a different microbiome that affects your brain's ability to think and efficiently operate.
Wow.
So it becomes, it's been a part of our program, but now we lean into it even more heavily. We want these guys, not everybody has to go on the carnivore diet. I will never tell anybody if you need to quit porn, you have to eat only meat. I think it's an incredibly effective tool for somebody that is really struggling, both with weight management, with maybe self-control, self-discipline, but even for 14 to 30 days, it will reset your gut microbiome and you'll begin to think and feel 100% differently. So yeah, it just changes the neurochemical firing within the brain. Now, the carnivore is a great way to use it, but if you were to remove processed sugar, if you cleaned up your diet, ate whole foods, I do believe in practicing fasting. We do have fasting in our program as well.
No doubt, dude. I mean, I've only experienced true fasting, like a true fasting regimen that I followed for 17 days.
Okay.
For 14 days, I lost 17 pounds.
Yeah.
But it changed my body and the way I felt for months afterwards. I felt the effects from that. And that was just 3-day fasts with a keto meal. 3-day fast, 2 keto meals. And did this for 2 weeks. It was an Elliot Hulse 14-day rational fasting program. Mike and I both did it. And we had him in on the podcast to talk about it afterwards. But it had a major effect on me. I have yet to go back and do it again. I feel like it's time, but it's incredibly hard.
Yeah.
But I think intermittent fasting is obviously a good start to just going right to 3 days. Because I think for some people that's I remember my wife tried and she didn't even, I think maybe she made it 24 hours and she was just she almost had a breakdown. She was like, like, I'm like, honey, just eat then.
Yeah.
Like, don't ruin your life over just trying to make this happen.
Yeah.
It was very hard for me. Very hard. I remember like not crying, but whining to Mike on day one. And he's like, dude, it's like lunch on day one and you're whining. But that's actually considered the hardest day sometimes.
The hardest day is day one.
The second day was easier.
Yep.
And the third day, you're already like, I'm going to eat tonight.
Yeah.
So you could sell yourself on I just got to get like 7 more hours and I'll be eating.
Yeah.
So it's very hard, but the intermittent fasting is easy to plug into your life if depending on how you do it. Give a good example of a good way to implement an intermittent fasting for somebody.
Yeah. And real quick, I want to just touch
please.
on what you shared there, because it's one of the things I love hearing the most. In week 2 of our program, there's a 2-day fast. Like, it is required. You do not move on to week 3 without completing 48 hours without food. It's the biggest fear the guys have of anything else in the program. Yeah. Like, they're not scared to ask the difficult questions. They'll come up on the group calls. They'll talk about their guilt, their shame. They'll open up to the brothers in the community. They're all afraid of this fast, though, which I was when I first started.
I know.
But by the end of it, you learn a lot of things. You learn so much when you deny yourself of food for 2 days. And I think one of them is how strong you mentally are and how capable you are. Learning to say no, learning to deny yourself, learning to say, there's something inside of me that tells me I want to eat, but my mind is stronger than that thing, and I can resist it, and it will go away. So it is amazing. For somebody that's looking to integrate or implement intermittent fasting into their life, I would say eliminate sugar as much as you possibly can. Trying to intermittent fast while eating processed food is going to make it very difficult because your blood sugar is going to be through the roof. Go keto or go low carb, go higher fats, red meats, fishes, salmons, minimal carbs. You know, if you're not somebody that's training like if you're not an athlete that's training super hard, you could probably go without carbs. Like, so eat your meats, your nuts, your avocados, your vegetables. Probably the biggest thing is have your coffee, throw some MCT oil, throw some butter, throw some ghee in it to kind of, help kind of extend the energy cycle there. Don't do it on a night like where you ate like crap the night before. Don't do it on a night where you maybe drink some alcohol. Be prepared and kind of set yourself up. Whole food based, minimal carbs, eliminate processed foods.
What would you say is a really good eating window for someone to implement? How many hours should they go? Should they go for like a 16-hour and then give themselves like from 2 to 6, 2 to 7 as a time period of eating? Like what's a 1 day look like?
Yeah, and I'm not the expert here.
No, I know.
But I did have Dr. Stephen Cabral on the show, and I would say he probably is one of the world's leading experts in this. He brought some things to me that were kind of, I don't want to say controversial, but they were counter to what I think a lot of people, how they practice it. He actually recommends eating breakfast, eating earlier in the day, and fasting later on throughout the day.
Okay.
Something with the research shows that's better for your circadian cycle. It's better for sleep. So your fasting would start kind of after lunch. So you would eat, small minimal breakfast, some eggs, some bacon, fats, proteins. You'd have maybe something post-workout. If you train in the morning, maybe a protein shake. Then your big meal would kind of be your lunch. And then you fast from lunch through the remainder of the day. And that's what he recommends. Go
to bed hungry.
Go to bed hungry.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what he recommends for most people. I think having this is exactly, it's got to be protocol for something like that is almost impossible because people have different lifestyles. People have different jobs, different works. Yeah. People just feel differently. So test, right? The fancy word in marketing, split testing. See which one works best for you. I'm not somebody that likes people being dogmatic about the way that they eat. It all works. So you got to find out what's best for you. So test different things, try the morning eating with the afternoon fasting, try the morning fasting. For me, that's when I fast, I'm better fasting in the morning because I don't know why I feel like food kind of slows me down mentally. So like my work is heavily loaded creatively in the morning. I like to fast a lot of times before podcasts. I had a little protein shake before recording this today, but nothing else. So for me, I'm somebody that will and maybe this is how I trained myself as a bodybuilder, because I used to do carb backloading
Right.
from DH Kiefer, so I was always eating a lot of carbs later on in the day. But you got to know what works best for you. Like if food slows you down and you're somebody that's got to be creatively on the go in the morning, then you're going to have to be somebody that maybe eats later on in the day. But
Right.
test it. But yeah, according to Dr. Cabral, the optimal way for most people is to eat in the morning, fast in the afternoon.
And nobody knows better than you all those years of bodybuilding, of trying different eating habits
Yeah.
and seeing how am I responding physically to this? How am I responding mentally to
Yeah.
this? How are my energy levels in the gym? If I eat at this time, how do I feel at this time when I like to train? You know, all those things.
Yeah.
So a lot of experimentation, but yeah, it does look different for everybody. Success looks different for people.